Okay, so this is ECDL Unit 2 Word walkthrough pre-exam session. The aim of this is to recreate what we've done in lessons, but for you to have the opportunity to take some time to read the question, understand what it's asking you to do, and then perhaps have another go at demonstrating on some of the resources that I've attached. Okay. So the first thing is, we've done some of this work before. We've done it on some of the same resources that we've got. As a result, you should be fairly familiar. You've got to remember to read the question. You've got to remember to read the question before you answer it. And you've got to make sure that if there's any mistakes that go through, that you clear the question and start again. Don't try and just make right what you've got wrong. Okay, so pause this as many times as you like, this video, and see how far you get through in approximately 50 minutes you've got. Okay, so first part of the PowerPoint, show and hide functions. So this is the icon you're looking for on Word. Okay, the show and hide function is used to show paragraph markings and other hidden formatting in symbolic form. You may be asked to turn it on or off, and the question that they'll ask you is to switch off non-printing marks or switch on non-printing marks. If I show you where we are in the paragraph section, we're looking for the icon that looks like a bit like a T or a H, and on the Word document that should pop up. Now obviously if they're asking you to hide the non-printing marks, the non-printing marks will be available. So we've got a document which you've seen before. You should have access to this. You should be able to open this from the shared area and save it straight away to your documents area so that you're not opening other people's documents. So it should be blank. Make sure it is blank. Make sure it's like this. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate in the Home tab by switching on the non-printing marks. Okay, so you can see, if you zoom in, you can see that there is a little full stop in between each of the words, that there are little arrows and those non-printing marks to indicate that you pressed enter. If you wanted to remove the gap between a paragraph, say for example in the question it says remove the gap between the paragraph starting if possible and ending quality and sustainability, what it's asking you to do is remove that mark there, that non-printing mark, and you can do that either by clicking on it and pressing delete, the D-E-L-E-T-E button on your keyboard, or you can click on the A button and press the backspace. Either way, you're going to get rid of that non-printing mark so it disappears. Now you know that there's a space between the full stop and the A because there's a little kind of like full stop in the middle of the lettering, okay, which appears in between each and every single space on the document. So if we switch that off, you can see that there's no errors with spelling. If we switch it back on, you can see where the gaps are and all the non-printing marks. Okay, so you're going to be asked to either hide it or show it. Later on in the questions, this is the way in which you can get rid of things like page breaks, but I'll show you that later on. The find button. This is used to find specific words, allowing you to count how many times a certain word has been used, and then allows you to replace it if needed. Okay, so there's two parts to this. There's the find, okay, which is found in the paragraph section on the right hand side of home, which you can put in any word, and there's also the replace, which in the same position, but instead of using the find, you select the replace button, and you can choose to find the word cool and replace it with the word loser. So let's have a little go at that. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out slightly. I'm going to switch off the printing marks so that we can see the document as it might do in the exam. And the first thing we're going to do is going to find all the positions of the word and. So let's get rid of the word John and just put in the word and press enter. In fact, you don't even need to press enter. Two things happen. Number one, you get the results. There are 10 ands on the document, and number two, on the document itself, it highlights where those words are being used. In the exam, chances are at the top of the page there'll be a little area where you get to type the number of results. So you'd write the number 10 in as a numerical number. In other words, type in the number 10. Okay, so that's fine. Let's do a replace now. Slightly different drop down menu appears, and what we're going to do on our document, we've got lots of gyms. It's gyms, sporting and outdoor goods document. So we're going to remove the word gym and we're going to replace that with John. In fact, no, we'll replace it with James, okay, because John's in the main title. Now the important bit to remember here is that when you're finding, it doesn't matter, case sensitive, so it's a little j, it doesn't matter. You'll notice there's no little j's, they're all capital J's. But when you find something, it doesn't make no difference whatsoever how you type it, just as long as you obviously spell it correctly. When you replace it, you've got to make sure that you replace it with a case sensitive, so a little j there would be wrong. Alright, it would replace it with little j all over the place and come up with loads of spelling mistakes. So make sure you do type that in. Click on replace all, and you know you got it right because it'll say well done. We made X number of replacements, so it depends on the question. But if it doesn't, if it says it hasn't found any, then you've done something wrong. So you can guarantee that you got it right if it says we've made some replacements. Click OK, and then close that down. And we can test that. There you go, James's. So it doesn't matter the fact that Jim had an apostrophe S on it, because it's now just done James's. Alright, so that's correct. Capitalizing. Okay, so again, this is a bit of a trick question. Sometimes the way that they phrase it makes you want to type it in, or you know, it's just worth just remembering this part of the video. It's to trick you. It simply means capitalize each word. So initial capitals is basically capitalizing each word. You do this from the section selecting the change case option in the drop down menu. Okay, so if you look on the icon on Word, we're looking for this little A, big A. So we can do that here. We can close down the navigation bar and we can select maybe the address bar, and we can go into the big A, little a, and if it's lowercase like I've just set it to, then it might ask you to capitalize each word. So I've just switched off the capitals of each word by putting everything to lowercase. I could do everything to uppercase. I could do sentence case, which basically will mean the first letter of the sentence. But in this case, if you look at the style of the address block that you've got, it does look, lend itself to capitalizing each word. Okay, so equally, just remember, if it's in the middle of the text here, the chances of every word needing capitalized pretty slim. Okay, here it's probably wanting a sentence case where the S would be, so if I do all lowercase, you can see that the little s there is not what we want, so I'm going to put in sentence case, and I'm just going to change that back to December with a capital D. Okay, so just a couple of things I could ask you on there to do with capitalizing and changing the case sentence case style. Next one, paragraph first line. Okay, so in the paragraph first line, we're looking in the home area, and we're looking in particular in the paragraph section. I'll show you it on Word in a second, but you're looking for this tiny little icon here which brings up the paragraph settings. Okay, so this tiny little icon here in the bottom right hand corner of the main paragraph side gives you so many options. Here are the options, here a little view of it. I'll show you it in Word in a second. And you've got to be careful where you're looking, because you've got things like alignment, you've got indentation, and you've got spacing. So you can align the text to a certain way, you can indent it, which means move it off the left margin in a certain way, and you can line space it, so the space between the lines and how that appears. So let's have a little go. Okay, so one of the questions that I like to do is to do something with a paragraph. So again, the question might read, to the paragraph beginning since you are and ending 6 PM to 10 PM, do a first line indent. So if we go to the paragraph icon, which I demonstrated, hover over it, you can see paragraph settings appear. Click on that. Here's our drop down menu. You've got indentation. If we did the left or right indentation, it would be for the whole paragraph. If we do a special indentation, we can do a first line indentation, and that's set to 2.3, which is an inch basically. It usually will ask you to do that to 1 centimeter, so you just have to change that. Notice that the left and right indentation for the whole of the paragraph hasn't changed, so you just got to be a little bit careful there. Okay, special first line indent, that's what that happens there. If they don't ask you for a first line indent, if they just want the entire thing indented, then you can just go to indentation and change that. So if I change that to 1 centimeter to that second paragraph down and click OK, you can see the difference between a first line indent at 1 centimeter and everything being indented to 1 centimeter. So that's first line indentation. You've also got things like alignment and line spacing, which I'm sure I'm going to come on to in a bit, but I might as well have a little go at it. So I'm going to select the same paragraph, and I'm just going to have a little play with the before indentation, and I'm going to change the line spacing to 1.5. So click OK, and you can see there's a bit more of a bigger gap between dear sir and since, and also the lines are now spaced out to 1.5 spaces per line. Character styles. Okay, lots of things we can do with character styles, but they might ask you, for example, to do an emphasis. So how do we go about doing that? So let's just do the title, okay, and let's just have a little look at the drop down menu and see what we've got. So we've got intense, whatever that says, book title, quota, subtitle, heading, strong, title. We can do an apply style and type anything in there, okay, and do a search for it. Chances are what it will do is it will ask you for one that appears already in there, okay, and the one they do like to do is the emphasis. So that's applying a style. Now unfortunately on the question it won't ask you to apply a style. It will just say change the, it might say change the style to emphasis of the title. So it will explain the title James Sporting Outdoor Goods, change that to an emphasis. So you have to kind of understand what it's asking you to do. Automatic hyphenation. Okay, this is used to demonstrate that a full word doesn't fit onto a line and therefore the word continues on the next line. So if we look at my document again, let's see whether or not we need any hyphenation. See whether it's been set up. Let's see if we go to the hyphenation area, which is in fonts there, I think. No, it's not. So it's in page layout, sorry. We've got the ABC hyphenation here. So it's to do with how the page is set up, not to do with the fonts. And if we do automatic hyphenation, you can see that middle paragraph changed slightly, and now we've got the word environment, or environmentally, sorry. We've got that split over 2 lines. Okay, so if I go and put that off, you can see that it's actually got gaps here in order to fit transportation on. So show you that again, just to that paragraph, hyphenation, automatic, transport's now fitted on half on one line and half on the other, which has made that the rest of the document is slightly changed, and therefore environment also goes on to 2 lines over environmentally. So that's automatic hyphenation. Just fits the words slightly better on the line, but by using a hyphenation, which is a little dash in halfway in the middle of a word. Okay, so that's in page layout. First time we've moved off home, page layout, and it's a hyphenation there, and it's setting it to automatic. So it's in page layout. There it is. Okay, mail merging. You've got a customer's document here, which is basically a Word document with a table on it. Again, you've used this already, so you don't need to save this one. You just need to link it to the shared area. So you'll need to. There'll be instructions where that'll be on the board. I'll move that just probably to your to the shared area in ECDL into the Word area. So how do we mail merge? Okay, so mail merging is worth at least two questions, and therefore up to 6%. The first job you've got to do is go to mailings, and you need to select a recipient. It's set to a letter already, so this document is already a Microsoft Word document in A4 portrait, and therefore is a letter. Okay, you can change things to things like envelopes and labels. Obviously changes the size of the piece of paper that it prints out on, but this has been done on an A4 Word document, so you don't necessarily need to set it to letters, but it doesn't do any harm just to click that. It flicks on, flicks off, and nothing really else has happened. We then need to go through the process of linking this Word document to that customer's document, which is basically a database because it's a table of results. So go to select recipient and use an existing list. Okay, so we're still in mailings. Select a recipient, use an existing list because we already have a list, and you need to search for that. Okay, so I would imagine shared templates, ICT, students, ECDL, Word, ECDL Word walkthrough, and there is the customer's document. Okay, it's basically next to the letters document that you're going to be asked to open. Okay, so customer's document. Now that's the first part. Now you can tell that it's mail merged because all these are now live. Okay, and you can click on things like edit recipient list, and you can see that that document now has been brought in. So there's the customer's document. Okay, and there's the link now between the customer's document and the letters document on, because the customers now appear as linked into the document. You can also see that there are merge fields appear. Okay, and chances are that's going to be one of the questions in the exam. So I can just redo that again. Select recipient, use existing list, and find the document and click on it. Okay, part 2 of the question, I'll just go through that on the PowerPoint. So I'm just showing you that you use an existing list. Okay, part 2 is inserting merge fields. So you can see there's an area here that says insert a merge field, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the address block here, and I'm going to add a couple of these merge fields to demonstrate I can. So click on the little black arrow drop down menu and insert title. Press spacebar so you get a little gap between title and last name. I always like to preview it to see how it's looking. So we've got Mrs. Truman, press enter. This is something we've done in practice several times. So I always keep the preview on now as I build it. Address 1, press enter, city, take the preview off. You can see that happening. Now in the exam, the chances of them asking you to do the entire lot are pretty slim. What they will want you to do is, once you've answered the first question on mail merge, this will open up and it'll look just like that. And what they want you to do is click on the city and press enter. So I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. Click on the city area, which is here, and just press enter so you go below, and then insert the very last merge field, which is country. So they'll have already populated the document with this stuff, title, first name, last name. So all they're asking you to do is demonstrate you can, for the second part of mail merge question, that you can insert one merge field onto that document. Preview it, works fine. Now they do expect you to be able to then make a full document of about 10. So to actually finish the mail merge, so you get one for Mrs. Truman, one for Mr. Wilson, and so on, of which there are 10 here. Okay, so in the exam there might be 20, there might be 200, it doesn't matter. It depends a little bit on which recipient list that they use. Okay, so you can see there's 10 people here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to finish the mail merge. So on the right hand side you've got finish and merge, and use it. Edit individual document. What that does is it allows you to mail merge all the records onto one document. So click OK, and we get now page 1 of 10. So if I zoom out for you, you can see that there are now not just one document, but there are 10 of those. Okay, so scroll all the way down. 10 fitting on 10 individual Word documents. Zoom in. Okay, it's one document, 10 pages long, and you can see the first one is to Mrs. Truman, second one is to Mr. Wilson. That's all you have to do. So there are two parts to this question. One is linking the documents, and the second one is adding at least one merge field and then finishing it off as a complete document. I'm going to close that one down. I don't have to save it. I'm left back with here, this document. I'm just going to go through the last bit. Alright, the important bit here is remembering how to finish and merge. Okay. Next skill, borders. Alright, this includes borders. This is to include borders. This is to include borders, text, or for tables when you have inserted them. Okay, don't worry too much about that. But how do we demonstrate how we do borders? Okay, I'm going to add a border to our title. Okay, if we go to Home, alright, we have this little icon here in the paragraph section, same as Excel, and it's borders. If we drop down that border, I would suggest that whether or not you're doing it to a picture, or you're doing it to a table, or you're doing it to a title like I've got there, is that you go down to the borders and shading icon at the bottom. Okay, what that will allow you to do is to be able to select a box border. They probably won't ask you to change the style, because as you can see they don't come up with specific names, so they won't ask you to do that. They could ask you to change the color, okay, and they might ask you to change the width. Okay, if they don't ask you to do anything other than just put a box border on, then you don't need to do anything here. Okay, you just click on the box, but I'm just going to change mine to a 1 point, and just like I did in practicing lessons, I'm going to change it to a red. Okay, so click OK, and that gets us a border there. Okay, you might be asked to do a page border. Alright, so I'm going to go and I'm going to add a page border in the same way, but this time instead of, I haven't got anything highlighted, so I'm not putting a border around any text. I've got the ability to go to page border, same thing, box border. This time I'm going to make it 3 points and I'm going to make it green, just so we can see it. Okay, so there's two places we can go to there, two different types of question. One is to do with a border around something, and one is to do with a border around the page. There is another place where we can get that page border. It's in page layout. I think it's in here somewhere. No, it's not. Is it in design? There you go, page border. But we might as well just stick with what we know, which is in the home area, and use that drop down menu and get used to using that. So on the PowerPoint, all I'm showing you there is that the important bits is to highlight that borders and shading area. And we get a whole selection that you can choose from. Okay, Format Painter, one of my favorite tools. Okay, the Format Painter is in the home area. It's, you know, we've got copy paste, which we should be familiar with now, so we don't ever use right click, and you've got the Format Painter underneath, which is a real good way of pinching formatting. So if I just select this area here, I have got it mail merged, so I'm going to preview it. Okay, if I change that to, I don't know, bold, italic, and underlined, and I might as well, while I'm here, make it red and highlighted. So at the moment there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different formats to that text. So if I just highlight that, I can now pinch the format in all 5 formats. So if it asks you to make something identical, it's this Format Painter, and now I can paint over something else and it will do all 5 of those formats. It will make it bold, italic, underlined, highlighted yellow, and red ink. And again, if I highlight that again and pinch that format in, I can do it to any amount of text in one go. Okay, so just undo that so I don't ruin the document completely, but that's Format Painter. Superscript and Subscript. Okay, the little X's with little 2's on it. You can see which one's which. Sub, under, subway, below, super, above, superior, higher. Okay, useful tools when you add in certain things, and certainly the thing that they like to get you to do is add a copyright symbol. So the first thing is we've got to insert a symbol. We haven't talked about this, but insert symbol, put a copyright on, and then all we've got to do is remember to highlight that, go to home, and either make it super or sub. Okay, so I'm going to make it Superscript. Okay, again, something we've done in practice. Clip art. Okay, on the older versions, clip art used to be a lot easier. All you've got to remember, it's a bit of a sneaky question. They're asking you to put something in for clip art. Chances are, if they ask you to do that, you've just got to remember that it's an online picture. They tend to ask you just to insert a picture. So if they wanted a picture at the bottom of the page, you would go to insert a picture from the Z drive. Obviously the Z drive is not open at the moment, so all I could do is maybe put a picture of the oranges in from the PowerPoint, put that at the bottom. Okay, I'll come back to resizing in a second, but if they want to be really sneaky, they might ask you to insert something from an online picture from clip art. So we'd have to go into Google and search for that, oranges. Okay, but again, I'm going to assume that they're not going to ask you to do that, for the simple reason is, it's not a common thing to do to start adding pictures from clip art. Not anymore. You'd save the picture into your documents area. So the chances of them using this one, I think they're going to use the pictures from your picture file from the Z drive. Okay, but just be aware of that. If they ask you for a clip art, it's an online picture. I'll come back to the picture in a second. There's a question later on about resizing it and making sure we don't break the aspect. But they also might ask you about data field. Now, when I did the exam as a practice, I got this one wrong because I thought it had to be in the header and the footer. So just be aware, if they don't ask you to insert it into the header, so I could put date and time in the header. I could change it from Swedish to English. I could put Monday the 13th, and I could make sure it's automatically updated, and then close the header down. That's now appearing on the header. It's not appearing on the top of the page, although technically it is the top of the page because it's in the header. So just read the question. If it asks you to insert date and time at the top of the page, that does not mean header. So I got this question wrong in practice. All I'm going to do is I'm going to find a space on the left hand side there, and I'm going to insert straight away without going anywhere near header and footer. I'm going to insert date and time. Okay, so here it is. It's a tiny little icon here. Insert date and time. A very similar drop down menu comes, so I'm going to do Monday the 13th. They might ask you to automatically update it, and I'm going to click OK. Now the only difference is that if I go down to the second page, because it's not in the header, it doesn't appear on the second page. So it's basically just allows me to put that date anywhere I like on the page. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of the border on it. There we go. So if they want the date, there it is, automatically update. I could have typed that myself, but they obviously don't want you to type it. They want you to use that very insert specific date and time icon there. Okay. Just remember as well, if you're asked to automatically update, make sure this area is ticked. File formats. Okay. Again, you've got to make sure you read the question. In this question, they're asking you to save it as a specific type of file. It's very easy to accidentally forget. They won't try and con you or put you off, I wouldn't have thought. So if it says save the file as a specific type of file, file save as, to the Z file, I'm just going to go to this area here. Okay, if they ask you to change the name of it from 3 to test, for example, then just check whether or not it wants you to change it as a different type of file type. So generally there are two questions to do with save as. Number one is to be able to get you to write file name in here and to search for the Z drive, which would obviously be in computer somewhere up here. So one of the questions is quite simple. Change the name of the file. So file save as, change name, make sure it's in the Z file. The second question that they ask is to change the type of file. So again, if I just go through the type of question, it might say something like save the file as a Office 2097 to 2003 document, or a Word template, or a PDF, something like that, or a 2003 template. Chances are they won't get you to change the name of it, and if they do say call it test, it will already be called test, and then it'll be a case of making sure you've gone into the Z file, okay, which obviously I don't have at the moment, so it'll be up here. So you know, it's quite easy to distinguish between saving the file as a specific type and changing the name of a current file, okay. So the one that catches people out is the save as type. I'm going to resize the picture now. Okay, so resizing an image. If I go back to that document, alright, we need to find the file picture format. So if you look on the Word document in a second, you'll see as soon as I click on the picture, I get the Format Picture Tools icon pop up. So I'm going to go back to that picture which I inserted, click on it, and there's my Picture Tools formatting area. When I click on that, I can do a couple of things. Now, if I click on the sides, okay, there's a little icon to the right hand side at the bottom, just like we had with paragraph earlier in the tutorial. Click on that and it gives me a whole host of choices. Okay, now in its simplest format, I can change that height to 5 and click off it, and what happens when I reduce that, is that it will also edit this width. Okay, so one of the questions is to get it, I don't know, to 5.0 and then get the width to something like 6. Now if I change the width to 6, you'll notice that the height's now changed, and that's because of the aspects being locked. So you'll notice that that hasn't been distorted. If I want to change both of these, then I need to go and I need to unlock the aspect ratio. So I need to click on the little arrow here and get the advanced layout options. I need to tick the lock aspect ratio, and then that will allow me to change the height and the width, either here or here, doesn't matter which, to whichever one I want. So I can change that to 5, and I can change that to 6, and I'll end up getting a weird looking picture. Okay, so you can see it's a bit distorted now. I'm going to wrap the text. Okay, I'm going to use this layout option, and I'm going to just make sure that I can click it, and therefore I should be able to drag that anywhere I like in the page. Okay, I'm just going to put mine to the bottom, and I can copy that and paste it and put that one now on the right hand side. So being able to wrap that image tight, which is that one, is important for if you're having to put that on the bottom right hand corner of the page. Being able to click on the image and go to Format and go to Advanced Layout in order to lock or unlock that aspect ratio is also important when we're looking at changing the size of it, so that we can change the height and the width to whichever ones we want. Okay, so there's confirmation that we need to lock that aspect. Page breaks. Okay, I'm going to put a page break in. We might put page breaks in order to section things off. Okay, so I'm going to put a page break here, anywhere in the document. So I might ask you to insert a page break just before the words "if possible" or the paragraph "if possible" and ending "quality and sustainable," which is this paragraph. So I'll click at the beginning of that, go to page layout at the top, and we're choosing one of the breaks. So I'm going to insert a page break or a section break. There's two types. There's a page break, which basically gives me a new page, and then there's a section break. Okay, so it depends on what they ask you to do. So I'm going to put a section break in. Okay, and you can see now it takes all that work down and starts a new page at the bottom. So I've now got 2 pages. Okay, I'm going to go back to the first skill I looked at, which is switching on the show hide button, the non-printed format. And what you can see here, okay, is that sectional break. So if you're asked to remove a page break or a section break, you have to switch the non-printing marks on in order to be able to see that section break there. And then when you press delete on it, it'll get rid of that. That's the only way of getting rid of a page break or a section break. So you have to switch the non-printing marks on. Okay. So that's what that explains, the non-printing marks, to be able to find the page break and then obviously to remove it. Inserting a table. Okay, I'm just going to switch the non-printing marks off. I'm going to add a new page break like I asked you to do. And on here I'm just going to press enter and I'm going to insert a table, and I just want it 3 by 3 to begin with. Okay, so how I did that, let's just click undo, insert table, highlight them. If you don't know rows and columns, what you could do is go to insert a table and then it will tell you number of columns. So if it says enter a table of 3 columns by 2 rows, if you can't remember which way around columns go, then if you do it that way, so click on the insert table rather than drawing it manually, and you're able to actually start doing it this way. So if it's 3 by 2, there you go, 3 columns, 2 rows. Okay. Okay. Whilst we're here, let's just make sure we can edit that table. Okay. So the questions that they might ask you to do is to either delete, insert above or below, insert left and right, split cells, split table. Okay, I doubt them two will come up in the exam, but certainly they're there if you need them. And again, just like the picture, if you want to edit anything on the picture, you click on it and you get a set of tools. If you want to edit anything on the table or a graph, then click on it and you get these tools at the top. Okay, either 1, 2, or in some cases 3 if you've got a graph. Okay, so if I wanted to delete a row, click on row 1 and I can delete row. If I wanted to insert a row, get that one back, in other words, I can insert below, get a few of them, I can get one to the left and the right. So we now made a much bigger table. Okay, we can merge those cells, highlight selection, click on merge, lots of things we can do. Okay, so that's 38 minutes of a tutorial. There's the key things to remember. Alright, hyphenation, page breaks, saving different formats, and mail merging is the big one. Okay, so you've got 2 documents. One's called letters, which is this document in its original format. You've seen this before, alright, and you've got 38 minutes. Make sure you can do all of the skills that I've just demonstrated and you're fairly familiar with them. Take your time over it. You've got a good 50 minutes to an hour to practice this and make sure you've got them all sorted. Okay, good.